Damian
The
Cole didn't
market is
shake hands,
ours
he
for the
extended
taking.
them, and
Our
people
strategy
reached.
has positioned us
That was the
perfectly.
difference. At
Look at that
38,
skyline.
he had built
It
Cole
represents our
Industries from a
future.
single office
We are
into a
unstoppable.
40-story empire that bent the skyline of the city. His name appeared in financial headlines, boardroom conversations, and the quiet fears of his competitors. He wore control the way other men wore cologne, constant, invisible, and impossible to ignore. His mornings started at 5, cold shower, black coffee, 30 minutes of silence before his phone touched his hand. His assistant, Marcus, had learned never to schedule anything before 9 and never to use the word urgent unless the building was burning. Damian moved through meetings like a surgeon, precise, detached, final. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When he spoke, the room leaned in. When he went quiet, the room held its breath. He had no wife, no children that anyone knew of. He kept his personal life behind a wall that no journalist had ever climbed. People called him untouchable. He preferred it that way. He had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and buried too many things to let anything or anyone shake what he had built. Nothing could reach him now. Tuesday mornings were his favorite. The building hummed with purpose, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, coffee brewing on every floor.
The decision
Damian
has
stood
been
at
made.
the floor-to-ceiling window
There is
of his
no turning
40-story
back now.
office, watching the city
We must
move
proceed
below
with
him
absolute
like pieces on a
resolve.
board he controlled.
Failure is not an option.
Everything had its place. His meetings were mapped 3 weeks in advance. His travel schedule lived on a shared server that only 4 people could access. Even his meals, ordered from the same restaurant, same table, same server, followed a rhythm that never changed. Order was not a preference for Damian. It was oxygen. Marcus appeared at the door, tablet in hand, reading the morning summary. Board meeting at 10, lunch with the Peterson group at noon, call with the Singapore office at 3. Damian nodded without turning from the window. And the Whitmore acquisition? Final documents arrived Thursday. Good. He lifted his coffee. Everything was moving exactly the way it should. There were no surprises in Damian Cole's world. Surprises were what happened when you weren't paying attention. And he was always paying attention. The city stretched before him, obedient and familiar. He had designed his life with the same precision he applied to every contract he had ever signed. Nothing entered his world without his permission. He intended to keep it that way. It was a Thursday. Marcus walked in at 11:47. Damian remembered the time because he had just initialed the final page of the Whitmore
This
documents.
can't be happening.
Sir,
I need to verify
Marcus set a
this.
folder on the desk. The
Hello?
Hartwell
It's me.
group
Is this
confirmed.
confirmed?
Their representative
Okay,
arrives
I'm on my
Monday.
way.
Damian opened the folder. He skimmed the name at the top of the page. Standard, expected. Then his eyes moved to the company contact listed beneath it. His pen stopped. The name sat on the page like something that didn't belong, a word written in a language only he could read. Nadia. Nadia Renee Hartwell. He read it twice, then a third time. His expression didn't change. His hand didn't move. But something deep behind his eyes shifted, quick as a shadow crossing a wall. He set the pen down. Slowly. Is there a problem with the documentation? Marcus asked. No. Damian closed the folder. Confirm the Monday meeting. Marcus nodded and left. Damian remained still. He stared at the closed folder on his desk the way you stare at something you're not sure is real. The name was common enough. It didn't have to be her. There were thousands of women named Nadia. He told himself that. Then he opened the folder again and looked at the name one more time. He didn't sleep well that night. He told himself it was the merger pressure, the Singapore deal, the 40 emails still sitting in his inbox. He told himself all of it and believed none of it. In the dark, with the city glowing below his penthouse window, the memory came anyway. It always started with her laugh. Not the polished, careful kind, the real one. The one she saved for quiet moments when no one was watching. She used to laugh at things he said that weren't even funny, like she found joy in him before he had learned to find it in himself. He was 26 then, she was 24. He had been sharp and hungry and convinced the world owed him something. She had been warm and patient and completely unimpressed by his ambition, which had somehow made him want her more than anything. He had left. He had chosen this, the empire, the control, the clean and airless life he now lived. It had been the right decision. He knew that. He had known it for 12 years. He turned away from the window and lay back in the dark. The name on the folder drifted through his mind again. It didn't have to be her. But something in his chest, something he thought he'd completely shut down, wasn't so sure. She arrived early. That was the first thing that surprised him. Damien had built his read of people on small details, and people who wanted something always arrived 2 minutes late to manufacture the feeling that their time mattered. His assistant texted at 8:53, "Miss Hartwell is here, sir. Shall I send her up?" The meeting wasn't until 9:30. He stared at his phone for a long moment. Then he typed back, "Yes." He stood behind his desk when she walked in. He had decided that, standing, not sitting, position mattered. She stepped through the glass doors ahead of Marcus, and the room immediately felt different. He couldn't have explained it. Nothing in the air changed. The temperature stayed the same, but something shifted, the way a room shifts when a window is opened and the breeze moves through before you even realize what happened. She was dressed simply, a structured charcoal blazer, dark trousers, no excessive jewelry. She carried a leather portfolio under one arm, and her heels struck the floor with quiet authority. She moved like someone who had learned, over many years, how to enter a room without apology. He watched the door, and then she looked up, and their eyes met. And Damien Cole, for the first time in 12 years, felt something he could not name. He had prepared. That was the embarrassing part. He had actually prepared for this. He had decided how he would look at her, what his expression would say, how quickly he would extend a hand and shift the dynamic toward business before any of the past could breathe. He had given himself a clear instruction. She is a professional contact. Treat her like one. But the instruction dissolved the moment their eyes met. She didn't flinch. That was the first thing he noticed. She looked at him the way you look at someone you have already processed, already accepted, already decided not to be moved by. There was no shock on her face, no held breath, no trembling edge of old emotion, just steadiness, clear, quiet, unshakable steadiness. It hit him harder than any reaction would have. He moved forward and extended his hand. "Miss Hartwell." His voice landed exactly where he intended, controlled, professional, unreadable. "Mr. Cole." Hers did too, warm, smooth, completely calm. Her grip was firm. She didn't hold on a second longer than necessary. She pulled back and opened her portfolio before he had fully lowered his hand. "Should we begin?" she asked. He sat down, nodded. He said all the right words for the next 40 minutes. But he never fully recovered from the first 6 seconds. He watched her across the table the way you watch something you're trying to solve. She presented the Hartwell Group's proposal clearly. No filler, no nervous pauses, no checking her notes more than once. She had done this 100 times. You could feel it. The girl he remembered had been brilliant, but she had second-guessed herself. She used to pause mid-sentence and search his face for reassurance before finishing the thought. This woman did not search anyone's face for anything. She spoke, and the room followed. Her voice moved through data and projections like it was conversation, easy, natural, unforced. And she never rushed. Even when Marcus interrupted with a question, she let the question land, let the silence sit a beat, then answered without hurrying. He found himself listening not just to the words, but to the way she held herself. The way her chin stayed level, the way her eyes moved with purpose. She was completely different. Not louder, not harder, just settled, like she had gone somewhere after him and found something solid there, something that fit her better than he ever had. He caught himself staring once and looked down at the document in front of him. He told himself he was reading. He was not reading. The meeting ended at 11:10. He stood when she stood, force of habit. They shook hands again, and he kept his face neutral, his posture easy. But when Marcus walked her out and the glass doors closed, Damien stood at his desk and didn't move for 43 seconds. He counted. He didn't know why he counted. He just needed something to count. He sat back down, opened his laptop, closed it, stood again, walked to the window. The city was doing what the city always did, moving, breathing, demanding nothing from him personally. But something inside him refused to settle. It wasn't the old feelings. He wouldn't let it be that. He was precise about such things. He cataloged emotions the way he cataloged risk, identified them early, assessed their threat level, and neutralized them before they could influence anything important. This was manageable. This was just surprised. Seeing someone from the past unexpectedly, that was human. That was allowed. What wasn't allowed was the quiet hum of something he couldn't classify, running underneath everything like a current he hadn't switched on. Marcus appeared at the door. "Your noon call is confirmed, sir." "Good." He turned from the window. He sat down. He opened his laptop, but the 43 seconds stayed with him all day. She was scheduled for a follow-up Tuesday. He told Marcus to keep the meeting to 60 minutes. He told himself that was about efficiency. Tuesday arrived. She sat across from him again, this time without the opening round tension. They moved through contract language and timeline frameworks, the kind of conversation he could have with both hands tied. He was good at this. She was too. At one point, they disagreed on a clause. Not aggressively, quietly. She held her position with a calm that made arguing feel unnecessary. He adjusted. She acknowledged it without making it a moment. There was something between them, not warmth, not hostility. Something more like two people walking a tightrope over the same drop, both pretending the height meant nothing. When the meeting was nearly over, he said, almost without deciding to, "You've built something impressive with the Hartwell Group." She looked at him, not surprised, not pleased, just measuring. "We work hard," she said simply. He waited for more. She offered nothing. He nodded. She gathered her portfolio. He asked. He regretted it the second the words left his mouth. "How long are you in the city?" She paused. "Just barely." "As long as the deal takes," she said. Then she was gone. And he sat with the question he should never have asked. He had Marcus pull the full profile on the Hartwell Group that evening. Public records, founding documents, growth timeline, press coverage. He told himself it was standard due diligence, something he did for every acquisition partner. He even believed it, briefly. The company had been founded 9 years ago. Nadia was listed as co-founder and chief operations officer. The other founding partner was a woman named Serena Hartwell, older, with a background in corporate law. The company had grown quietly, methodically, without the aggressive headlines that usually marked fast success. Which was strange, because by every financial indicator, the Hartwell Group had grown very fast. Damien read through the revenue charts. 3 years in, the company had made a jump that didn't match the industry average. Too clean, too sudden. He had seen that kind of growth before. It came from either a major investor or a personal asset that had been quietly leveraged. He went back to the founding documents. Read them twice. Something was missing. Not dishonest, just absent. Like a part of the story had been deliberately kept off the page. He closed the file, then opened it again. He wasn't reading it for the acquisition anymore. He was reading it like a man looking for something he wasn't sure he wanted to find. She had liked mornings. He hadn't thought about that in years, and then suddenly he couldn't stop thinking about it. She used to wake up before him and sit by the window with her knees pulled to her chest, reading or just looking at the city. Not restless, content. Like the early hour was something she'd claimed for herself. He had never understood that kind of peace. He'd always woken up already behind, already planning, already building towards something just out of reach. She used to say he was the only person she knew who treated the sunrise like an opponent. He had laughed, not because it was wrong, because it was exactly right, and no one had ever seen it before her. He hadn't thought about any of this in 12 years. He had been disciplined about it. When a memory arrived, he noted it like weather, acknowledged, not invited in. But something about seeing her again had left a door open, one he couldn't locate to close. He pulled up her company's press page and found one photograph, a group shot from some industry event 2 years ago. She stood at the edge of the frame, smiling at something off camera. Relaxed, easy, like a woman who had nothing left to prove. He stared at the photo longer than he meant to. He had never chased answers before. That was always someone else's behavior. Insecure, reactive, undignified. He asked questions when he needed information, not when he needed reassurance. But by Friday, he had scheduled a lunch. He framed it as a courtesy, common practice between acquisition partners before final documents were signed. He chose a quiet restaurant, no open kitchen, no ambient noise, a place where conversation could move without interruption. She arrived exactly on time. He had not arrived early, either. That felt important. They ordered. They talked about the deal, briefly, comfortably, and then he steered, gently, like adjusting the wheel 1 degree at a time. You mentioned the Hartwell Group was built over 9 years, he said. That's right. With Serena. Yes. You didn't know her before the company? She set down her fork, looked at him directly. We met under specific circumstances, she said, which led to the company. What circumstances? She picked her fork back up. The kind that make you realize you're capable of more than you thought. He watched her. She was giving him something, just not the thing he was actually asking for, and she knew the difference. He could see it in the way she answered, precise, generous, and completely controlled. She had learned, somewhere along the way, how to be the one steering. He tried again over coffee. He was careful, slow, easy, nothing that sounded like urgency. You've never reached out, he said, in 12 years. She wrapped her hands around her cup. No. Was that a decision? She looked at him. Yes. He waited. I needed to move forward, she said. Reaching out wouldn't have helped that. And now? Now I'm here for business, Damien. His name in her mouth, his first name, the one she'd always used, moved through him like something warm over something cold. He kept his expression steady. That's all this is. She tilted her head. Slightly. Just enough. What else would it be? He didn't answer. She let the silence hold. Then she said, You've built something extraordinary here. I mean that. Cole Industries is remarkable. The pivot was smooth, effortless. She had redirected him without making him feel redirected. He was looking at a woman who had mastered something he prided himself on, control of a conversation. She finished her coffee. They spoke for 20 more minutes about logistics. And when she left, he sat alone at the table and realized she had not answered a single personal question. Not one. But she had made every non-answer feel like something. He called an old contact that weekend, a man named Ellis, someone who moved in private circles and knew how to find information that wasn't advertised. He told himself it was professional curiosity. He had Ellis look into the gap, the 3-year jump in Hartwell Group revenue that didn't match public records. On Sunday evening, Ellis called back. His voice was careful. The money didn't come from an investor, Ellis said, not a traditional one. Then where? A pause. A private trust, established about 9.5 years ago. The trust was funded by a single personal asset liquidation. Damien's hand tightened on the phone. What kind of asset? Real estate. One property, sold quietly, no public listing. Whose name is on the trust? Ellis was quiet for a moment. There's a secondary name listed as trust beneficiary, he said. Someone other than Nadia. Damien sat very still. Who? Another pause. A minor, Ellis said. The record shows the beneficiary's date of birth as Damien's chest compressed. Say it. Ellis gave him a date. The words landed in the room like something dropped from a great height, heavy, silent, impossible to take back. Damien sat in the dark for a long time after Ellis hung up. He did not move. He called her Monday morning. He had rewritten the opening sentence 4 times in his head before Marcus connected the line. She picked up on the second ring. Nadia. Damien. Damien. Her voice was the same, steady, not surprised. I need to see you, he said. A pause, not long. The documents aren't ready until... Not about the documents. Silence. The kind that knows what it is. When? She asked. Today. This afternoon. Another pause. Then, 2 o'clock, the lobby bar at my hotel. He agreed. He arrived at 1:50. He did not do that for meetings. He never arrived early unless he was nervous, and he never admitted to being nervous. She was already there when he walked in. Of course she was, sitting straight, coffee in hand, completely calm. He sat down. No preamble. Nadia. Damien. Ellis called me back Sunday. He watched something pass through her eyes. Quick. Almost nothing. But he had been studying her for 2 weeks now, and he caught it. I see, she said softly. Her hand rested on the table, completely still. He leaned forward. Is it true? She looked at him. Not away. At him, with something that looked like she had been waiting years for this particular question. She didn't speak right away. She set her cup down, aligned it carefully on the saucer, and then she looked at him, fully, without flinching. Yes, she said. The word was quiet. 1 syllable, but it hit him like the ground after a long fall. He sat back. He had spent the last 48 hours preparing for this moment, building walls, setting logic in place, telling himself he would respond with discipline. All of it collapsed. Why didn't you? Tell you. She finished it without cruelty. Because you had already left, Damien. He said nothing. I found out 2 weeks after you walked away. Her voice didn't break. It was softer than the voice she used in meetings, but it held. I was 24 years old. I had no money, no family nearby, and the man I had trusted had made his choice. He stared at the table. You should have told me. Should I have? She tilted her head. You were very clear about what you wanted. You said, I know what I said. The words came out rough. He stopped himself, pressed 2 fingers against his mouth, drew in a breath. She watched him the way you watch someone working through something real, not with satisfaction, not with pity, with patience. The same patience she had always carried, except now it had weight behind it. I raised her alone, Nadia said, for the first 2 years. Then Serena came into my life. She was a client I worked for briefly, doing administrative work. She saw what I was carrying. She helped me build the foundation. She paused. The property I sold it was the small apartment my mother left me. I used it to fund the trust for our daughter's future. Damien's jaw tightened. Our daughter. He had known it was coming. Ellis had told him, but hearing the words was entirely different. It was like being told a building you thought was empty had been full of light the whole time. What's her name? He asked. His voice came out lower than he intended. Nadia watched him for a moment. Elise, she said. She's 8. He absorbed that. 8 years old. She had been alive for 8 years. She had first words and a favorite color and a way of laughing, and he had known none of it. Does she know about me? Nadia's expression shifted only slightly, but enough. I told her father was someone important who lived far away. He looked up. That's all? That was all I could offer her that was true, Nadia said quietly. I wasn't going to tell her something I didn't know how to finish. He didn't speak for a long time. Around them, the lobby bar moved. Quiet conversations, the gentle clink of cups, someone laughing softly across the room. Normal, ordinary sounds. The kind that has no business existing when your entire world is rearranging itself. He pressed both hands flat on the table, stared at them. He was a man who always knew what to do next. Every situation, every crisis, every negotiation, there was always a next move. He had built a career on being the person who knew the next move before anyone else in the room. He had nothing, no next move, no framing, no prepared response, just silence and the echo of a name. Elise, 8 years old. He had a daughter. He started, stopped, started again. I need to understand what happens now. Nadia looked at him. That depends on you, she said, on what you want. What I want. He almost laughed. The sound didn't quite make it out. I don't know what I'm allowed to want. You're allowed to want things, she said simply. You just have to decide if you're willing to do what wanting them requires. He looked up at her. This woman who had raised a child alone, built a company from nothing, and walked into his boardroom without a single crack in her composure. He had never respected anyone more in his life. 3 days passed before he called again. He spent those days in a way he had never spent days before. Not working, not planning, just sitting with it. With Elise's name, with the image he couldn't shake, a girl he'd never met who existed because of him, who had grown up without knowing his voice. On Thursday evening, he called Nadia. I want to meet her, he said. No preamble. Nadia was quiet. That's not a small thing, she said. I know. She doesn't know your name. She doesn't know your face. I know. If I introduce you, it will change her world. And if you disappear again, it will damage it. The word disappear landed deliberately. He took it. I won't disappear. You said that before, not in words, but in actions. You left. I left you, he said. I didn't know she existed. That's true, Nadia said, and I've thought about it every day for 8 years. He let that sit. It deserved to sit. I'm not the same person who left, he said. Silence on the line. Long. I'll talk to Elise, Nadia said finally. I'll explain, carefully, in a way she can understand. And then, if she wants to meet you, we'll arrange something. His throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said quietly. Just don't prove me wrong. He stood at the window on Friday evening. The same window, the same city, the same view he had looked at 1,000 times while telling himself he had everything he needed. The skyline hadn't changed,
perfect.
But he had stopped believing the view meant what he'd always told himself it meant. His phone sat on the desk. On the screen was a photograph Nadia had sent that afternoon. She hadn't asked if he wanted it. She had just sent it. A small girl with dark eyes and a wide, unguarded smile, sitting at what looked like a school desk, holding up a drawing of something that might have been a house or a mountain or both. She had his jaw. He hadn't expected that. How physical it would feel, recognizing yourself in someone you'd never met. He had looked at the photograph for 40 minutes. He had touched the screen once, lightly, like it was something real. The acquisition deal would close next week. The Hartwell Group would become a partner. He and Nadia would have reasons to talk. Structured, professional reasons. That was something. Not enough. But something. And there was Elise. A name, a photograph, a drawing of a house or a mountain, a beginning he had no right to deserve,
so
and
lost
every
in this
intention of
place.
earning. His world
The
was no
answers I
longer the
seek are
same.
just beyond my grasp.
For the first time in 12
Perhaps
years,
it's time
he
to
was
look
glad.
elsewhere.